So today I'm joined with Erim Kaur. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today. Obviously you must be so busy, so you doing this in itself is so big for me. So thank you. I'd like to ask you to just introduce yourself and start with introducing your Sikhi journey.
Well, thank you for having me, Simran. I'm very honored to be here. So yes, I'm Erim. I'm 25. I'm the CEO and founder of By Erin, which is a luxury hair care brand, as well as being an influencer primarily on Instagram and TikTok. So I generally post fashion, beauty, lifestyle, hair content. But as someone who is like very proudly Sikh, I like to dedicate a lot of my page and my efforts in terms of like the charities that I support, mainly being Khalsa Aid, to Sikhi related causes. And just trying to educate. So every morning I'll post Waheguru on my page, just as a kind of reminder to everyone from all faiths, regardless of whether it's Alhamdulillah, if you're Muslim, or thank God. Maybe like as a first thought when you wake up, as well as kind of like asking a question, encouraging people to think about various things. What are you grateful for? What motivates you? Someone you love? Just trying to reinforce that positivity on my page. This is something that's relatively new to me. So with regards to my journey, in a nutshell, I grew up in a non-Asian area in London. So I didn't have a lot of the cultural elements coming through when I was being brought up. It was very much more like religious led. And going to uni, I then was just kind of immediately infused with all of these different and strong cultures, primarily from people from Birmingham and Midlands. And I was like, wow, okay, like you guys seem to know like all of these things and I don't know them. And I was very much coming from that like religious learned perspective, if you understand what I mean. And I was really, really looking to learn more about not only my culture, but my religion as well. So I joined the Sikh Society committee. I was the social media and sports secretary. I don't know why we combined those two roles. I was in charge of the football every Sunday. I also don't know why I was put in charge of that, but apparently I was good at it. And through that, I learned so much about Sikhi. So the main thing that really helped me is when we had like speakers come in from, basics of Sikhi. I always get the order of the letters wrong, but I think it's NSYF or is it
Yeah.
NYSF? Yeah, whichever one. National Sikh Youth Federation, NSYF. Which honestly I would sit there like transfixed in the front row like wow, like my mind is blown, tell me more about how science relates to Sikhi. And I just really started to fall in love with it. So it kind of was the not necessarily rituals but the practices that people like my dad Waheguru taught me. They started to have meaning to me more than just we listen to Sukhmani Sahib Path every morning. Like I was understanding a little bit more about the roots of it and just the beauty of the language that was included in it. And I want to jump back a little bit as well. So I believe you mentioned, oh, you did your research, Simran, didn't you?
I did.
All about my 1984 documentary.
I
So when
did.
I was 18, I believe, I did an EPQ, which is an extended project qualification. And I decided to do mine about the genocide of Sikhs in 1984 in India. And that was when I first got exposed properly to like history in Sikhi. Because at school, like you're taught the Vikings and like the plague and stuff like that. This is the first time I kind of had learned about my own people's history, and it was very, very eye-opening. I was very delusional at that age. I made the whole documentary and everything, and I was tweeting BBC, I was tweeting Sky News. I was that annoying girl that had no idea how irrelevant she was, but I was trying my best.
Did anyone respond?
Definitely not. Not a one. But people in the Sikh community started to support it, which was really, really cool. So yeah, that's kind of like all an amalgamation, kind of very messy amalgamation of my own Sikh journey that's brought me to where I am now, where I'm definitely, Sikh student. So I'm still very much learning a lot to learn.
No, that's good. And, going back to your 1984 documentary, obviously, as you said, you was sending this out to BBC and Sky News and everything. And that actually raises the question of like, is it our responsibility then to educate people? Because as you said, in schools as well, they don't teach that in history. So is it our responsibility to teach people about Sikhi, about our Sikh history, about what we value, or should that be something that other people pick up themselves?
That's such a good question. As you're asking the question, my kind of answer is developing, but it's like switching from side to side. Um, you know what? Since I was very young, I remember being in year 5 and we were learning about RE, and we didn't have a segment on Sikhi. And I remember, like, I'm a very like I was good at school, but I was rebellious in the sense that, like, if something didn't make sense, if I didn't think it was relevant, like, I stand up and be like, what is this? And I just remember, like, I would fight with my teacher since year 5 all the way up to, I think I dropped RE because I was like, this is silly. In year 9, because I was like, why are you not talking about it? Because the thing is like, we're so well versed in the more dominant religions. We
Mm,
know everything down to, what particular cutlery they use to cut their meat.
yeah.
But then you introduce yourself as a Sikh to someone and they're absolutely not the foggiest who you
Mm,
are. And I think that's where the UK curriculum or English curriculum, I don't know, lets us down, because that breeds ignorance. And then we do get those situations where, unfortunately, not only is that applying to the Sikh religion, but to Islam, to Hinduism, to all of those ones coming from the East, that people are assuming we are all the same. And then that's where, like, so many horrible things happen to everyone unjustly. So I think education is the root of solving ignorance. I would definitely think at this point in time, where the people in charge, so predominantly white males are in charge, they grew up not being educated about Sikhi. It's a big ask to ask someone to learn about something they have no idea what it is.
yeah.
So I think it really is up to us, in particular our generation, to lead the way and pave it, so that the people, I saw this quote, I'm not sure if you saw it, but it was like, scream loud so one day your granddaughter doesn't have to. So I think that's what we need to do right now. And it's unfortunate that is the case, but that is the reality of the situation. So I definitely think it's up to us. Like, I remember my teacher was like, okay, like, let's have your baba come in and teach us,
Yeah.
and that didn't manifest and didn't happen in the end. But like, that type of approach to the
Mm,
situation, I think, is really, really useful, because when people don't understand something, they can miscommunicate it. And the last thing we want as Sikhs is for our religion to be miscommunicated, because
yeah.
there's so little information out there about us as it is. At least if we are the ones communicating it to people for the very first time, we're in control of the dialogue, we're in control of the narrative.
That's true. And like you said as well, in terms of RE, I remember the only thing that they spoke about Sikhi in RE was about the story of the Saki. And even then, at that point, the way that they would talk about the Saki that is the Saki, I would get so annoyed because the thing is, I was the only Sikh in the class, right? So
Yeah.
everyone would turn around and look at you and be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, your Guru Sahib cut the head of an animal and had blood on his sword," and like, because of the way that my teacher used to teach that story, it wasn't the way that I wanted it to be spoken about. And I think a lot of Sikhs would agree, if they were sat in that classroom, it would just be the most awkward thing ever. So even
Mhm.
when teachers are teaching it, I think, like you said, even just asking for someone to come in and talk about it if they don't know about it themselves, that would be really good. And that is actually a really good idea. And that kind of links to what you do as well, because you mentioned you're an influencer. You talk about Sikhi a lot on your page, just by starting the morning by saying Waheguru as such. So how does influencing impact your journey into Sikhi? Because you had the uni experience, the experience in school, but since becoming an influencer, has that had any impact on Sikhi in a good way or a bad way?
I think that's a really good question. So I think, as one of the main, I would say, and like, I'm not trying to like brag here, but like, one of the main like Sikh influences in the UK, maybe you
Definitely,
can
yeah.
say, I think there's a lot of eyes on me, to kind of be the voice, not the only voice, but be a voice, let's say, to represent our community and the youth in our community. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on me, but at the same time, the proudest thing I am in life is to say that I'm a role model, and I would never ever want to lose that. So I think, with the benefit of being able to call yourself a role model and have that platform, you also need to understand that there's certain responsibilities that come with that. So I do find that I have a lot of pressure to understand properly the current events that are going on, the historical landmarks that appear every single year within Sikhi, and communicate them in a way that is understandable by people who aren't Sikh, because I have a very diverse audience in terms of British Asian. Like I have a lot of Muslims following me, I have a lot of Hindus following me, very much that kind of demographic. Communicating Sikhi in a way that's understandable to them, but then also communicating in a way that's understandable to people outside the British Asian community, because that is where my audience is now expanding into. In that, you got to consider your sources. So I don't know the dates off by heart. I don't know the names off by heart. I don't know the chronology of the stories off by heart. So often I will look to online resources to find that. But when you're not taking it directly from the source, sometimes it's really difficult to get it accurate. And a lot of different people have different recollections of the things that happen. So I definitely feel a pressure to make sure that I'm being as unbiased, as it were, when reporting or retelling the stories of Sikhi, or whatever's going on in the world about it. So I think in that vigilance or diligence, I don't know which word I want to use, that I have when I am researching these things, I'm kind of self-educating about these important times in our history. So one example I will give you is during Christmas time. That is a beautiful celebration for the Western world. There's a beautiful celebration for Christians and I believe that sector of religions. Correct me if I'm using the wrong words, but it's not something that's relevant to Sikhi. So I want to remind my followers, whilst we do live in this Western world, and whilst of course it is a lovely time of year, and whilst of course we can respect and we can observe these holidays, it is at the same time very important for us to maintain our own history. This marks the martyrdom of the Char Sahibzade on Boxing Day, and it's important whilst you're sat there at the table eating your roast turkey and whatnot, rejoicing with your family, celebrating. I believe it's Jesus. Is it Jesus's birthday? He was born on Christmas, right? We also need to remember what happened in our history. So I always try and remind my followers that, and sometimes it might be a bit depressing to say, let's remember the time, unfortunately, that the Guru Gobind Singh Ji's 4 sons were martyred. But
it's so true, because that's something that, as you said, in terms of it being our responsibility to teach other people, it's also our responsibility to teach our generation and the generation younger than us. And literally by just talking about it at the dinner table while you're eating your Christmas meal, it's important that we speak more about the shahidi of our Sahibzade and what our gurus had to go through for us to be sat in this position, right? And in terms of going back to your influencing and stuff and how you've been talking about things, it's really good. So firstly, thank you, because there's not enough voices talking about it.
So well, thank you for having pages that can help to educate me.
Not even, but how have you been managing balancing being an influencer and being Sikh, in terms of let's look more in terms of Simran, for example, or in terms of Seva, because those two are major values in Sikhi. So in terms of being so busy on a day-to-day basis, how are you then balancing that with Simran and Seva? And this is something that a lot of people can relate to, because whether you're a student, whether you're working, you're busy 24/7 pretty much, and if you're a uni student like myself, you don't have a sleeping schedule, right? So you're working all night as well. So how do you balance that, those values of Sikhi with influencing and being as busy as you are?
Okay, so with regards to the influencing side of things, I think it's very important to make sure that your morals come through in the decisions you're making. So, for instance, I wouldn't accept, and I haven't accepted in the past, I've been pitched for collabs with brands who do hair removal or razors and stuff like that, just because I don't think, that's an obvious one not to do. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of about teaching what you preach, or doing what you preach, whatever the phrase is.
Practicing what you preach.
Practicing what you preach. You got it. When it comes to my busy schedule, so what I think is really easy way for me to integrate just reminders of God throughout my day. As soon as I get in my car, I say a little prayer. And it's kind of one of those things where, if you remember Pavlov's dogs, when he rang a bell, the dogs would immediately salivate. Not to make a gross comparison, but it's kind of that type of learned behavior. So it's as soon as I get into my car, I'm doing a prayer. And regardless, I don't ever forget that. As soon as I wake up, I'm doing it. As soon as I get out of bed, I put the bath on, those types of things. So it becomes a habit in your day. I think that's what makes it really, really easy. And that's just through repetition, because then you don't even have to think about it. There's so many different resources out there on YouTube. So you can listen to Kirtan Sahila. It has the like it has the Punjabi alphabet, then it has what it sounds like, the phonetic in English, and then it has actual English. And that really, really helps, because sometimes, especially in Punjabi, it sounds like a sound, but then when you actually read how it's meant to be spelt in English, it helps you when you're trying to recite it, otherwise you're kind of saying something, you might be missing out one of the letters or one of the words. And looking at how important language is in Sikhi, like it really is important, like every single syllable. So that helps me a lot. What about you?
Do you know what? So my Sikhi journey sort of started in Sikh form, right? So obviously I was born in a Sikhi household, so I was pretty much raised surrounded by Bart, and my mum is very Sikh. Like she was born and raised in a household where people had been blessed with Amrit. So she had a pattern prior to this anyway. So I was probably from the age of 7 reciting Rera Sai by myself from what she had taught me. And then come to sort of my self-led journey. It was, I think during sixth form, I was able to then, make sure that I am doing Rera Sai on time. And then also learning Kirtan Swell at that time. And I'm trying to know it off the top of my head, trying to keep my Amrit Vela, which is actually probably a struggle for many.
Yes.
Waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, even just the very simplest bit of like trying to get out of bed that early in the morning, it wasn't easy. And I think it took year 1 of uni for me to really put that in place of like being able to keep my Amrit Vela. And now where I'm in final year and my pattern is all over the gaff, I would say it's difficult, but at the same time, if I wasn't to do Bart right now, like after this, I would do Red outside the Bart. And if I wasn't going to do that, my whole evening would be messed up and it would be out of place. It's kind of like a mood thing for me. So if I don't do it, I will feel really off within myself. So in that sense,
I completely relate. Yeah. Like
yeah,
if I don't start my morning with Sikhi Sab, I'm like, what?
Exactly.
Has the day started?
Exactly. No, it changes your mood for the whole day. Likewise, even if I'm awake doing uni work, and I know this defeats the purpose of Amrit Vela, like actually waking up to recite Bart in the morning. But at 2 o'clock, it's like fixed schedule, like 2, 3, or 4, whatever it is, that sort of time. If I haven't done my Panch Bani other Bart, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm asleep, like, and I have to wake up or I'm up doing uni work, and then I go to sleep and I wake up ready for the morning, I will feel so out of place and disorganized. It's kind of in my system now. But obviously it takes a lot of work for it to be in your system. So, but once you get it, you kind of, you can relate, right? You can't really let it go, no matter what's going on. And then in terms of Seva, obviously it's very hard right now. And I think it has been for the past year to do any sort of Seva. So Seva would have to be something that, is as simple as donating for charity.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Yeah, like my donation has like incredibly increased. Can't do anything else. Like, let me send you money.
No, it's true.
I think, like, Sikhi is a religion that is so beautiful and brilliant in the way that it has stood the test of time, and it will forever stand the test of time. So, no doubt, when the scripture was written, it was knowing that one day social media was going to exist, right? So I think it's really interesting for us to see how we can apply Seva to a world that is connected digitally. So, you and I were just speaking about Erim Kaur. She's a very good friend as well. She, I would identify her work as partly Seva. So when she is posting those poems and inspirational quotes and stuff like that is helping someone. So there are many, many ways that you can do Seva. It's about thinking outside the box. Like I told you guys, I like to think outside the box. I like to not follow the rules. So don't take things literally, apply the words to your situation and see how you can make the best of it. If you can't physically give food to a homeless person, fine, I totally understand that. You can donate, as you were talking about, but there's many other ways that you can help people across the world, because the problems are different now. Of course hunger will always, and hopefully wouldn't, but is definitely a problem right now. But we're now suffering issues of mental health. That's an issue in and of itself. How can you use Seva to help the people with mental health?
Of course, yeah. Bajad is like one of the biggest ways of doing Seva, and I think even you just talking about things on your social media the way you do is Bajad in a way, is Seva in a way, because like you said, people are struggling with mental health issues as of right now more than ever, because we've been told that we have to stay indoors, and to be honest, staying within the same four walls isn't easy, right? So for anyone, it's a very difficult situation. But you know, how has it been for you, just lockdown wise, and has Sikhi had any sort of help, or has it helped you stay as stable as possible? Because this isn't, of course, like you said, it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. I am very much like, honestly, if I was an animal, I'd be a bird. Like, I fly everywhere, like I'm everywhere at all times. And for me, like being told not like that I can't do something, and like being told I have to stay at home, like it was very, very painful, as I can imagine it was more so for many, many people along the world for many different reasons. And at first I was like in denial, and I was like, no way can someone tell me to stay at home. And then I was like, oh wait, they can. And then I was like, well, I really don't have a choice right now. So in regards to how Sikhi has helped me, I don't think that my daily practices have changed and my daily thoughts towards Sikhi have changed, but I do find myself, when I'm taking a step back, and I'm sure you've had that matrix moment where you take a step back and you look at the world right now and you're just like, what on earth is
It's like
going on?
something out of the purge. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like a
Literally.
movie.
Yes. And it's like sometimes I'm in my car and I'm like looking at people in their masks and I'm like, I'm deeping it. And I'm like, what is happening? But that's when I do look to Sikhi. So it's kind of like the bigger overarching thoughts that I have around the situation as a whole is influenced by Sikhi. But like I said, the minutiae of my day very much is the same as it was before, I would, with regards to Sikhi. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, because I mean, your job is social media. We were talking about it before this as well, about how you're still working. It's not like you've got an office job where things have changed for you. Your job is literally 24/7 as well at the moment. So, you know, how I mean, there's this idea of like you only present on Instagram what you want your followers to see. And I think you've said that before as well. But what's the difference between what you put out publicly in terms of your Sikhi, and then what you do privately?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think so. Obviously, you know, you and I have spoken about this, but privately, I do a lot more with regards to like my actual daily participation. But I think, you know, being like, if you want to use the word like quote unquote, a modern girl, a lot of the things that I probably do privately wouldn't be consistent with the way that people perceive me, because they're perceiving me as like a fashion influencer. Like they wouldn't think I'm learning Japji stuff. They wouldn't think I'm doing my part in the morning and the evening. And that's okay, because I don't need to do it for you. I do it for me, and like God knows, you know.
Mhm.
But I think the world is very scary in the way that people approach things. You and I were just speaking about this before we had our call. You know, you can, like I said to you, I can open a window and 100 people are going to tell me I did it wrong.
Yeah.
So I try and avoid talking too much about my private practice, because I think it's just inconsistent with a lot of people's beliefs of me. And like I said, it's not for anyone else, it's for me and God. But then publicly, I try and articulate it in a way that is a bit more, I don't really know the correct word, maybe like current events, or maybe more like historical events, like speaking about things, less so teaching you how to learn Japji Sahib off by heart.
Like more so talking about sort of worldly affairs as opposed to,
Yeah,
yeah.
because you know, at the end of the day, like I have a very, very large platform, and I just don't want to be in a position where I'm like telling it wrong. So at the point I'm at right now in my journey, I think I need to understand and learn everything privately before I'm able to have that true knowledge and communicate it publicly.
100%. No, I completely agree with that. Even with like my Sikhi class posts, or even my
Mm,
podcast right now, right? It's more so like I'm not trying to teach people things. If people were to look at one of my posts and learn something from it, that's different, right? And assume it's the same with you, right? If someone wanted to see what you were posting on your story about a worldly affair and they were to learn from it, that is a different situation. But me and you both, we're not actively trying to teach people things. It's more so like I say, right? I started my Sikhi class account, it was literally just for me, because this was like my sort of way of thinking, oh, if I post something, I'm gonna remember it. And so I was
yeah,
learning Guru Sahib's hukams all over again, and I thought, why don't I just post all 52 of his hukams, and I
yeah,
will know. Like now I know them, right? But before, it would be something that I would have to revisit. And so Sikhi class wasn't it was more so of like a way for me to learn myself, and if someone else benefits from that, that's good.
yeah,
But at the same time, of course, there's so many things that we're going to do privately that people are not going to know about, and it's
yeah.
more so because if it's sad that it's like this, but if you were to then bring it to light, a lot of people will turn around and say you're not doing it the right way, or
Yeah.
say that there's a problem with it. And I think that is also an issue that we need to get rid of, because we're
Yes.
all on the same path, we're all trying to reach the same destination. And Maharaj ke Padhe naal, hopefully we all reach Sachkhand, but the only way we're going to get there is supporting each other, and that's the importance of Sangat. And Sangat is
That's so
being like
beautifully worded. I love
thank you.
that. And for me, like I said to you, like I understand the platform I have. I understand that there is a lot of people listening to me. I want to make sure that before I speak about a particular topic, I'm fully clued up on the situation.
No, of course. No, that's exactly it. And we were speaking before about having to be very careful about what we say. Even for me with what I'm doing, like I just have to be very careful what I say, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't have to be careful about talking about something that you're so in love with. And I feel like I'm so in love with Sikhi, and you as well. And the fact that we have to be careful what we say, because someone is going to end up saying that we've said something wrong. That's not It's not how it should be. And I think that scares a lot of other people from talking about it. So coming back to this whole awareness thing, where there's not many people talking about it, but this is the reason why. And even when it comes to awareness, like I look at our generations before this, and this is like kind of different, but I look at the generation before us and how they don't talk about 84, and that's genuinely out of fear. That's not that's more so because if they talk about it, they're going to get in trouble with someone's going to say something. And this is something that the new generation, I think our generation and the generation below us, has to we have to make that our responsibility to sort out. That is a problem that has existed for so long, and this is why people don't know that much about Sikhi. I think we need to make more conversation, not just within our panth, but outside of our panth as well, because that's when issues as such as what's happening with Kasans in India, as raising awareness on 84, that's the only way these problems are going to get sorted. And that's why I really do appreciate what you do, and I think a lot of others circulate what you do as well. So even when you're getting a little bit stick from people, girl, try and ignore it, because
Thank you.
there's people like us that actually do appreciate you talking about Sikhi.
That TikTok was like, oh no, oh no, oh
Yeah.
no, 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 that was me. But I wanted to speak about something. So what you said really made me realize something. I think the younger generation, we're very selective about the things that we're renouncing when it comes to, like, let's say Punjabi culture, and the things that we're willing to hold on to. So linking back to the caste thing, right? It seems to be that Jats are the only ones that don't want the caste system to go. And it might not be the case, but it seems to be that. And I think as a Jat, it is your responsibility to denounce that, because it's only serving you, and which is why I made that video. But then automatically, by being someone who speaks up about it, you're immediately ostracized. And all of the comments were flooded about how, oh, Erim's this, Erim's that. And it took a lot for me not to comment back and be like, no, that's not the case. Because if I was to do that, I'd be validating that I don't want to be a different caste. So I think that we're holding on to this thing. We're holding on to the Jat. We're holding on to the toxic masculinity. We're holding on to the alcoholism. We're holding on to the, I don't know, the partying and all of these crazy things. But then there's other things that we're like, no, we don't want to have sexism anymore. We don't want to have X, Y, Z. And I understand that we can't eradicate all problems immediately. But I think that we need to look at the things that are seen as cool, seen as popular, they're trendy when it comes to like Bhangra music and what they're talking about in the lyrics. So I think that we really need to try and come at this from a bit more of a holistic approach when it comes to like speaking up about Sikhi, because there's a huge difference between Sikhi and Punjabi culture. Not that all Sikhs are Punjabi, of course, but it seems to be that we're just not treating it as such, I believe. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I think there's a problem with our generation in the sense of like we are so exposed to our culture that we're forgetting our Sikhi. And even now, amongst having, I have a few Sikh friends now, and Waheguru, they're such good people, and the way that they think is very similar to what I think. But when we talk about our experiences, we talk our experiences of having other Sikh friends, and we see that they're very cultural as opposed to carrying their Sikhi. That's when there's an issue, because they will claim that they're Sikh, but they will also claim that they're Jat. And then you're like, oh, okay, so which one is it then? Because you're kind of contradicting yourself, but at the same time, when we're trying to talk about Sikhi to other people, how are you going to say that you're a Jat but then you're Sikh as well? That's probably one of the biggest problems in our panth, again, as in, people carry their culture.
Like, I think it really comes down to, and sorry for interrupting you, but I think it really comes down to the way that you were like culturally raised. Like, I was brought up thinking that Jat Sikh was the long way of saying Sikh, because I did
Right.
not know any other caste. I did not
Right.
know anyone else in the Punjabi community. So me coming to uni, like, I honestly didn't know that Jat was a caste. Do you know what I'm
Okay.
trying to say?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not to excuse your friends, because I think we all come from different backgrounds, but I do
Yes.
believe that if you haven't been educated, similarly to how we were talking about
Yeah. Of
RE,
course. Yeah.
if you don't know, you just don't know.
Of
And if you
course.
don't have a willingness to know, you're never going to try and know. So
Definitely.
sometimes it is just that ignorance. Like, for instance, I was ignorant when I came to uni. I honestly didn't know what Jat was. I just thought everyone was Jat,
Mm-hmm. No,
which
100%.
sounds
I agree
crazy.
with you. I no, do you know what? That was like what I was getting to, because like as I said, like I was hearing these experiences of people that have friends that hold their culture so highly and hold their caste so highly and then claim that they're Sikh, and that is, like you said, we're not educated enough within our own Sikhi to then know what is right and wrong, and then that links to our awareness thing of like, okay, but then how much can you spread awareness on without getting hate for it? Do you know what I mean? So then
Yeah.
it's like we're in a cycle of problems.
Cycle.
It's
Yes.
a cycle of issues, right? That we're not addressing, and we're gonna stay in this cycle for as long as we don't address it. For instance, if we was to sit here and support one another instead of bashing one another, like your video, right? If we was to then use that as awareness, as opposed to, you know, telling you that you're wrong for doing this, that, and the other, it would be a different story. But then again, like, how are you going to get people to do that? That's like the difficult bit.
It's like, for like that video, very simple concept, as we discussed. Sikhi promotes equality. It was demonstrated in a social media, like virally, very simple way. Me walking into a room, me walking out of a room, literally nothing more. Like, fully dressed, everything, fully dressed, fine. 99% of people, as I discussed with you, like, were for it. They got it. But it's that 1% of people who just didn't watch it, didn't get it, didn't understand it, don't know how it links to the teachings of our gurus, because it may be the case that they just never have learned directly what happened. And, you know, had I not gone through my own self-discovery, and yourself and are going through that, we might not know that. You know what I mean? Like, they might have just been brought up in an environment where that was the rule, as equally as what Sikhi is being taught, Punjabi culture is teaching you that. And it does get difficult, because then you've got like Punjabi culture teaching alcoholism, not teaching alcoholism, but like promoting drinking, you know, in these music videos and stuff like that. And then you also have Sikhi, which is like, don't drink. And I have to be honest, like, I recently saw some comments where it was like, Erim Kaur acts so innocent because she doesn't drink. Like, who does she think she is? And I was just like, what? Yes. I'm at a really extreme point of contention when it comes to these naysayers in the community, because I just feel like I can't do anything right, and no one can. I see so many other fellow young Sikh female influencers who being come at for the most irrelevant of things, and it's very, very, as we were talking about earlier, alienating.
Yeah, I've seen it as well, where a lot of Sikh women are being targeted for what they wear, and it's like you're not making it easier for other Sikh women to come into that, like to experience
Yeah.
that journey by doing that.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back to telling, like, people need to learn where their opinions are relevant and where they're not. And if your opinion is going to affect someone else's Sikhi journey, then you need to keep it to yourself.
That's very well said, actually. Yeah, because I think honestly it can do more harm than good. And at the end of the day, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life, Simran, is pick your battles. Talk to me about meditation. I know you're into it.
Meditation. So
Yeah, what are your tips?
with me, meditating is just me doing bad. So that's like my sort of time of meditation. I know meditation means a lot of different things to other people. A lot of the time it could be you sitting there in complete silence. Like I said before, if I wasn't to do bad, if I wasn't to have that moment to myself, and I think that is meditation for me, I'd be all over the graph. Like, my head would be all over the place and I wouldn't be able to concentrate. So in terms of like tips for meditation and getting into it, I think you need to try and make it a routine. So like you said, just like you in the morning sitting there and doing something beside the bed, that is meditating in the sense that you're sitting there
I
and
just
you're
listen
finding.
to it. I just listen to it.
Yeah, no, of course,
I
yeah,
don't
no, but
sit down.
that's equally like that moment of just listening to it and finding peace in it. I
Yeah.
think, of course, like meditating means something different to everyone. But I mean, I started there. I used to just listen to my bard because I couldn't recite it. I couldn't pronounce it properly. So
Yeah, and
I
sometimes
would,
the words you don't understand.
no, of course, look, Gurumukhi is
Yeah.
so hard to learn. Like it took me very long, like to even
And I'm
just
so
be able.
happy that you just like admitted that.
No,
Yeah, it's a
100%.
huge barrier to a lot of people. Like, okay, nowadays when you go Gurdwara, they have the screens up and they have the like Roman translation,
Yeah.
which is so helpful. But like sometimes I sit there and I'll just recognize one word like Barney or something in the middle of it, or like Pyar or something, and I'm like, I did it.
Because you have to like see like Gurmukhi is a mix of Arabic, is a mixture of Punjabi, it's a mixture of so many
Sanskrit as
different.
well, right?
So learning Gurmukhi in the sense of being able to read it is one thing, but then learning what it means is a completely
Yeah,
different thing, right?
yeah,
So don't ever feel like a pressure of like having to know Gurmukhi because it
yeah,
will. And honestly, the more you do, the more you listen to part, and that's the best way to do it. Because, like you said, you listen to Sukhmani Sahib. I used to just, when it came to Amrit Vela, I would just sit there for an hour and listen to the Panchbaniya. Like I wouldn't be
mm,
able to recite it. And even with Kirtan Swala, like when I was learning Kirtan Swala, I started by listening to it because then you can hear how it's being pronounced. So yeah, even with that, I think pressurize yourself to even think like you don't know Gurmukhi. Like it's something
yeah.
that everyone goes through. No one admits it, right? But I'm openly admitting it. It is hard, right?
You
It's
know
like
what? I
it's
used to learn Japji Sahib when I was at uni. I used to recite it. And I remember one of my friends came to my room before we had an exam. And I was like, okay, let's quickly do a little bit of Japji Sahib, like Bart, because I knew it off by heart, but I knew what I thought it was saying on the paper in English. And she's proper, really good at Punjabi. And I recited it. Bajari, she sat there, listened to me saying it. But thinking back now as to how I said it without having ever heard it like properly and paid attention, I must have sounded absolutely insane. I must have sounded insane. But you know what? Like, even with Punjabi, like, I understand it so much more when my dad speaks it because he's born here and he
okay,
speaks like dead Punjabi. He's with good Punjabi.
yeah.
But like, if someone from India speaks to me in Punjabi, I'm like, what are you saying? Like,
No,
what?
that is a problem for me as well because they're so quick with it.
It's the slang they use as well. And I'm just sat there like, I can't remember if someone once used a really weird word for something. And I was like, sorry, what? And then they translated it for me and my daddy told me and I was like, no.
So, Erin, back to your business. Can you tell us a bit more about your business and what it is that you do?
So I own a hair care company called By Erim. And our first product, we've been here for 1 year, completely like created it on my own, funded it on my own, started it on my own. Now we are very, very lucky to say that we have a team of 6, which is super exciting, 80% of ethnic minority. And our primary product is a hair oil. So this oil, the story of it in a nutshell, originates from my childhood. So my mom had really, really long, beautiful hair. She passed and I wanted to have hair like hers. So I would see my dad Satnam like every weekend. We'd be in the kitchen cooking up all sorts of weird and wacky things. I'm sure you're smiling. I'm sure you can relate. You got lovely hair.
Thank
And
you.
we eventually, I think when I was like 14, 15, we landed upon the oil formula that's inside the bottle of Biorum today. And this is a mixture of 8 all natural, pure, cold pressed oils, like the highest quality that you can get. Our oil is completely manufactured in the UK. It's vegan friendly, it's cruelty free, like it's completely CPSR tested. Like this is a legit product. Like this isn't making it in her kitchen. This is the real deal. And it's down to even like a third of 1%. That's how deep I went into each formula. And I had to remake samples because obviously I'm sure you can relate. Like maybe when your mum was cooking, she's like a pinch of jeera, a handful of, I don't know, masala or something, not a handful of masala, I don't know what she's cooking, but like a handful of masala. And you're just like, but wait, how many milliliters is that? Can you just quantify, please? And they're just like, no. So we had to kind of like make so many different iterations of the formula, finally got it. And yeah, I launched it last year? No, December last year. So we just passed our 1 year anniversary. And, I'm really, really proud to say that like we're now a 7-figure business. We've launched our second product, which is a brush. So I try and integrate, because I know you always talk about this now. You're like, Erin, get to the Sikhi. I integrate Sikhi as much as I possibly can to my products, to my brand. And I think those are two very different things, because they're both a product in some sense, in the sense that like people are buying the brand as well as the actual oil, as well as the actual brush. And I want it to be something that really does represent us well. There's very few I wouldn't, was not the word openly, but well-known Sikh owned brands. Like they, it's like openly Sikh owned. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You know, Sikhs are, we're business people. We got loads of businesses, but it's kind of like, I'm very proud to say it's a Sikh owned brand. So in all of my imagery, I try and make sure that my gara is in the photo. The oil itself was created for people, with people who wear pugs, hijabs in mind, because I want to make sure that it's a non-greasy formula. You can look after your hair, even when it is under conditions that might not be as desirable for the hair, because you do need to kind of let it breathe in the sunlight and stuff. Making sure that you're able to look after your hair, because you only have one head of hair. You know, you only have that hair. So you might as well look after it. It is the crown that you're wearing. So making sure that the oil is formulated for all types of people and that it genuinely works, which it does. You have the oil, don't you?
Yeah, I have the oil, and so I don't cut my hair, right? And the reason why I was smiling before is because, like what you were saying, when I was younger, mum would always be like, "Okay, come, let's put Dale in your hair," and I can't explain how much I used to hate having Dale in my hair. Now I've got Dale in my hair every day. It's a different story, but back then, no. And the worst thing was when mum would be like, "Okay, let's put Dale in your hair," and then me knowing that I'm gonna go out with greasy hair, it's like I
And it
can't
was
do
smelly as well.
exactly right. So it was like, oh no, I can't do this. Like every person that is not Indian in my school is
Yeah.
gonna be like, that girl stinks of them,
Stinks.
or like literally. And so, I bought your oil, and it's so weird that you say it's only a year, by the way. I thought your business was around so much longer. The way you've made it so perfect. Hats off, because that is like looking at your then, even just having the picture of your bottle in my head, right? For you to have done that in a year, that is insane. So, well done, girl.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
yeah, no, so I use your then, I had a bottle myself, and I don't cut my hair. So for me, I haven't cut my hair in probably about 7 years now, maybe longer. And I, eventually you get to a point where your hair ends up getting split ends, but your oil is not greasy at all. And I kid you not, I had your then in my hair probably like every night. And this is why it's run out so quickly
I'll
because
send you one.
but I've literally I used it all the time. It smells so good for a start. I'm really into my aromatherapy, so
Oh
that was
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my god, it
Yeah.
was so
Do you
good.
do the
Like,
deep breath in on your hands when before you put it?
yes.
Yes, girl.
And do you know what? Even sleeping with it is in your hair is so much better, because it's lavender scented, right? So like my sleep was so much better. My
Yeah.
hair was shiny. My split ends were, I don't know the science, but my split ends were disappearing. I didn't know what was going on.
We didn't
But
glue them back together. We're preventing more. But yeah, no, I completely hear you. And plus, it doesn't stain your pillow.
no, it
That's
doesn't.
the key thing. Remember having to sleep with a towel on your pillow and how rough that
Yes.
was on your face?
I
Sis,
do
I've
you know
been
what
there,
I
don't worry.
honestly I use like the other hair masks and stuff, and I have to put a towel, like wrap a towel on my
Yeah,
head, or put a top on my head. But when I was
yeah.
using your oil, I could just sleep and not even worry about my white pillow getting a stain in it. And
Listen, invoice me later for this plug, mate. You smashed it. Thank you. But like,
no,
it's so
but
validating to hear.
I mean that in the most genuine way. Like, it's actually such a good product, and like, hats off, girl, because you've smashed it in a year, like, honestly. And that actually brings me to your new brush. And this,
Yes.
so even the link between the in a Sikhi way before, like, it's a really good product, and I think a lot of other Sikhs would agree with me, where we've been using the product, and it's proper helped our hair and our ends. But even just with the brush, now I can't help but notice that brush is wooden. And I don't know
That's
if
my
you link that
girl.
between a ganga and a wooden brush. But just for anyone that doesn't know, one of our 5Ks, our Panch cards, is a ganga, which is a comb, and it's a wooden comb. And the basis of that is, obviously, as Sikhs, we're very clean, and the ganga helps to make sure that our hair is kept clean, because obviously we keep our hair covered. But additionally, a wooden comb controls
Static
electrical
energy.
impulses. right? So in a sense of like, it helps mood wise as well. So
Yeah.
you're not as angry, you're not as stressed when using a wooden comb as opposed to like a plastic brush. And I don't know if you've linked those two together, or
You know what it is? Yeah, I like to do it subtle because I don't want to shove it into people's faces, because I don't want people to think that this is just a brand for Sikhs, right? Because everyone is human and everyone can benefit from having reduced static energy around their head, because that is, what is it called again? What, this thing here?
yeah, that's something.
Yeah, and it's like that's where the energy of your hair is. So you want to, like, we're all human, we all have that. So we can all benefit from having the wooden comb. So yes, it is wooden. My new one that's coming is black. It's coming this month. I'm very excited.
Big things.
I know, but I just wanted to create a brush because boar bristles, they come from boars. How gross. Why are we rearing boars, which is a hairy pig, to cut their hair? And then you get cruelty-free boar bristles, which is when they collect it from the floor, which I don't believe. So I really struggled to find a manufacturer for the vegan boar bristles. I managed to get it because at the same time, you've got to respect the fact that like Muslims, they don't use pig products. So I was like, inclusivity is very, very important to me. I think you probably get that. I just want to make sure that like everyone can use it. And bull bristles are super important because having that along with a mixture of the longer bristles, which is quite rare in a brush to find, long enough bristles. And Simran, I can see your hair is like quite like thick and bushy and wavy, which is beautiful. Sometimes if the bristles aren't long enough, they don't get down to the actual root when you're brushing it. They only brush like half of the top layer, which is just not good. And knowing the way that Asian hair behaves, I wanted to make sure that it had a variation of the shorter boar bristles, because those can help to detoxify the scalp, because they help to distribute the oils from your root down to the bottoms, as well as cleansing any dirt or impurities or product buildup that might be on your scalp. Mixing it with a longer bristle. Sorry, I'm giving you guys a science lesson. I'm sure everyone's
no, keep going.
Basically it works. And it's good, especially for I had a lot of it was really interesting. I had a lot of like hairstylists message me when I first launched it, because we sold out in literally 2 minutes. And they were like, oh my God, I need this for my kit. And I was like, look at me making things that are benefiting people outside of the Asian community. Look at me.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because obviously when I first saw it, I was like, there's definitely a link here between Sikhi and your brush. I'm glad you like clarified it now that there is a link, but also there's so much of like a benefit to people that aren't Sikh for using that brush as well. And as well with your thread as well, I'm going to plug you again, but I think it's a very good thread for people that don't cut their hair. And I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here. I actually mean that. It smells amazing, and
I'll
it
pay
helps.
you later. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to touch on as well. So in terms of your business, aside from your products, is there any other links to Sikhi with what you do on a daily, or even okay, forgetting like your business, just Erim in general, with like your YouTube videos as well?
Yeah, I think actually I can speak about by Erim. So by Erim, we've partnered with Balance, which is a meditation app. So if you just type in Balance on Instagram, if you DM them or email them saying that you're from the by Erim, you get, I believe it's a year's free subscription. So that's like a relationship that I built over time, because meditation is one of the like important parts of Sikhi. So I wanted to facilitate that for people in a way that wasn't just Sikhi focused, because everyone can benefit from meditation. I myself need to get back into it. And honestly, Simran, hearing you talk about your own meditation has really inspired me. So thank you. We've got that. Whenever we do any like charity, I don't know the correct word, but like activation, so we work with Khalsa Aid, and just trying to like support the current affairs that are going on the Erin page as well as Erin, because at the end of the day, like if I believe in something strongly enough, like as it should be represented in every aspect of my life. I'm not going to be a Sikh owned business but then not talk about Sikh related issues. So that is very much reflected on there as well. We got a lot of things off our chest, and I also learned a lot, so thank you so much. And I also wanted to say to any of the listeners, like, I'm so sorry if I said anything wrong or if I've offended anyone. That was never ever my intention. And then thank you as well to you, Simran, for humbly giving me this platform to talk about things. It's nice to have a safe space.
No, thank you. And yeah, as Erin said, we apologize if we did say anything wrong. We come here with the hopes that we can have a positive impact on other people in terms of Sikhi and people that are trying to find Sikhi.